What's up, guys? So, I was enlightened on something very recently. And I must say, I never knew how hard it was to date as a woman. Story time. So, I had been dating this girl over the last couple of months. And of course, at this point, we were maybe 2 or 3 dates in, a little bit more, and, things were going pretty well. We somehow got on the topic of like dating issues or challenges in this day and age for both men and women. And she started opening up about the challenges that women face. And like the very first thing that she said was like physical safety. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, yeah, sure. Like, well, what exactly do you mean? So she begins to elaborate and she's telling me, she's like, oh no, you don't understand. Like, we have to share our locations with like our friends or girlfriends. We constantly have to check in. Like, when we show up to the date, after like an hour, 2 hours, maybe in the bathroom, we have to go, and we have to like text our mom, text our best friend, everything is okay, that sort of thing. We have to say, if you don't hear from me within like 15 minutes after this particular time, go ahead, call the cops, call whoever, like, you have my location, like, just tell them where I am. And I'm thinking to myself, like, really, it's that deep? And she's like, yeah, it is that deep. And then she started speaking on me and her and how our first date went and some of the things that she was thinking initially. So on our first date, I wound up parking in this parking garage, and she happened to park in the same parking garage, and she texted me saying, hey, I parked in the same parking garage. And I was like, oh, I said, okay, yeah, like, I'm already downstairs. I was like, I'll wait for you down there, and, just come, as soon as you're ready. So she's like, okay, yeah, I'll be like right there. So I'm like right by the steps, thinking to myself, she's either going to come down the steps or she's going to come out of the elevator. Next thing I know, I turn around and she's like standing right there, like right behind me. So I'm like, whoa. I was like, oh, hey. And then she's like, she looks at me. She's got this big smile on her face. She's like, hi. And then she, reaches in, gives me this really big, long, like really tight hug. And then she looks at me and she like plays around with my shirt a little bit. She like starts touching my hair. She's like, oh, she's like complimenting me on my look and that sort of thing. So yeah. And then she's like, lead the way. She goes, let's go. So, she puts her arm, of course, around my arm. We're walking together, and, we go to the restaurant. Everything on that night ended very well, of course. But one of the things I was asking her was, I was like, what exactly was it? Like, how did you feel about me when you first met me? And she was like, well, do you remember how I said I was going to come down and I was going to meet you while, you were already all the way downstairs at the bottom of the garage? And I was like, yeah. She was like, I deliberately did not take the steps, and I deliberately did not take the elevator. She was like, I literally decided to just walk down the like driving pathways of the garage all the way to the bottom because I wanted to approach you from behind and make sure that you were who you said you were. And then she told me, she was like, I wasn't sure if you were who you said you were. And she was like, I had, my purse. She goes, if you remember, I had this particular purse. She was like, it was a fairly heavy purse. It had all kinds of things in it, weapons, that sort of stuff, to defend her just in case of anything. And then she also told me, she was like, do you remember the heels that I had on? And I was like, yeah. She goes, I knew those were heels that I could run in just in case. She was like, I then started to approach you from behind, and I saw that you were who you said you were. So I was really relieved, and I felt okay that, like, you at least were who you said you were. She was like, you hear all kinds of stories, and there are plenty of times things happen to girls when they go on these dates with guys that they don't necessarily know, and they wind up getting kidnapped, they wind up getting harmed in some way, shape, or form. So I was just prepared, for any possibility just in case. So at that point, she's explaining all this to me, and I'm just kind of like, just mind boggled, because as a man, I would never think of any of those things. And then I had to ask her, I was just like, well, okay. I was like, obviously you knew who I was and that I was who I said I was. I was like, but what made you feel so comfortable with me? I was like, how did you know that I wasn't going to sit there and I wasn't going to hurt you or like attack you or do something of that sort? And she told me, she was like, well, she was like, that did kind of go through my mind. She goes, but I knew I was very safe. She was like, when we went to go across the street, she was like, you stepped out into the street first and you looked both ways and you made sure that there were no cars coming and that, everything was safe before, grabbing my hand and then, pulling me into the street to, walk to the restaurant. She goes, I knew that when you took the lead and, you were making sure everything was safe, like you scouted everything to make sure it was good and it was safe. She was like, I knew that I could trust you at that point. And basically I just, I guess, made her feel very safe and secure the entire time. But, bottom line is, moral of the story, like, as a man, I would never think of any of those things. Like, if anyone ever, like, tried to approach me or tried to, like, do something to me where, they wanted to do some sort of harm to me, I'd be like, okay, fine. Like, I'll just fucking fight your ass. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think about those things, and I don't, like, get concerned about those things. And I would say the majority of men don't. So, I mean, when she was just explaining all this to me, I was just kind of like, really? Like, I had no idea that that was going through her head. But apparently it goes through the head of most women, when they're going out on a date for the first time, especially if they don't know the guy, like maybe if they meet him on Hinge, because that's how I met this girl. I met her on Hinge. And yeah, I mean, they say dating is hard for men. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure in many ways it is. But like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I would want to trade places with women, if I'm being quite honest. So, but I was enlightened, to say the least. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I understand you ladies on a different level now.